For someone to be energetic, we not only need to eat right, not only take the right nutraceuticals, not only manage cortisol, but also actually absorb what we eat. A decrease in cellular energy. I'm going to tell you the symptoms now, and as I do, please mentally check them off for yourself. What steals your energy and how to spot it in time? Swelling, loss of concentration, a general decline in cognitive abilities. I remember this, I don't remember that. I can't concentrate, I forget words. Brain fog, like you're hungover. Basically, you wake up in the morning and you just can't pull yourself together for an hour until you've had 3 coffees, an Americano, or whatever coffee you drink. Everyone has their own thing, right? More advanced folks go for a contrast shower and try to jolt themselves awake with a kind of stress. Cold hands and feet, loss of concentration, emotional instability, endless mood swings. Well, let's not forget that we have physiology in our bodies, and we have mitochondria. Mitochondria are tiny power stations that give us energy. I'm explaining this in very simple terms, not for doctors, but for people who aren't really close to medicine, just to make it clear. So, mitochondria provide energy to our entire body. And the #1 energy vampire is chronic stress. You might say, nothing new here, it's all clear. I'll explain to you why. Okay. Cortisol, adrenaline. Adrenaline is a fast-acting hormone that's produced in our body during some kind of emergency situation. I'm driving, a truck comes towards me. That's adrenaline. But cortisol is a silent killer. It's chronic, ongoing stress that makes it seem like everything's fine. I'm living a normal life, but this stress is destroying you. Everyone has their own kind of stress. For some, it's burnout at work. For others, it's an unloved husband. And for someone else, it's feeling unfulfilled. Like, I want to become a nutritionist, but instead I have to go to a job I hate as an accountant every day. I'm just speaking hypothetically right now. So chronic stress is the biggest vampire, the destroyer of our mitochondria. Mitochondria are like big power plants. As shown in the picture here, they're the ones that produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy source for our entire body. They really need various extra resources, oxygen, magnesium, coenzyme Q10, B vitamins, iron, so these power plants can work properly. And mitochondria don't function properly if you're not getting enough sleep. I always say that a person can't be healthy if they're not sleeping. It's another thing if you go to bed at 10, wake up at 7 in the morning, and still have no energy. That's a different story. But most often, my patients who are lacking energy come to me in situations where they say, I go to bed at 1 in the morning and get up at 10, or I go to bed at 1 in the morning and get up at 7. That won't work. Dear friends, mitochondria don't recover unless we're sleeping, especially once we're over 30. What else? Too much sugar. An excess of simple carbohydrates leads, through complex biochemical processes, to oxidative stress, which really damages our bodies from the inside. Chronic inflammation, including in the gastrointestinal tract. Cholecystitis, pancreatitis, gastritis, various microbiome imbalances, SIBO, SIFO, small intestinal bacterial/fungal overgrowth syndrome, and protein deficiency. Every second patient who comes to see me, or actually, almost every single one, has a protein deficiency. A patient comes in, I look at their test results, and their protein level is 65. For example, a woman. How can a woman function normally with a protein level of 65? There won't be healthy skin, nails, hair, or hormones, nothing. No matter what she does for herself, no matter how much beauty care she gets from a cosmetologist, with such low protein it's impossible to function properly or be an energetic person. Not a single nutraceutical works without proper nutrition. Nutrition is the foundation, it's the base. If you don't have food, no supplements will help you, because supplements, as I've said 100 times, and I'll say it again, supplements are biologically active additives to food. The key word here is food. The thing is, the food these days is pretty lousy in our time. And that's where you really need to work on yourself, your mindset, and your grocery basket if you want to be a healthy person. So protein is a building material, including for mitochondria. Without protein, it's impossible to be a healthy person. And if we're talking about dietary sources, it's of course animal protein in the right ratio, 60-40 compared to plant protein. If, for example, you're vegan or, well, you've cut out animal protein for some reason and eat quinoa, as people often say, and buckwheat. That's all great. Those are really good sources of plant protein. But we still need animal protein, dear friends. Omega-3 is a must. Omega-3 has been through it all. First it was put on a pedestal, then it got a lot of hate. In reality, omega-3 is a very important nutraceutical for building cell membranes, protecting cell membranes, and shielding us from all sorts of harmful effects, including toxic and even cancerous ones. Omega-3 fatty acids in food are very important. Plus, of course, as a nutraceutical, because we just can't get the full amount of omega from food alone. We don't eat 2 kilos of wild fish a day, right? Nothing is possible without fiber. The gallbladder can't function properly without it. Your gallbladder will never work properly in your life without a normal amount of fiber, honestly. You could talk about this for days. Again, I absolutely love the topic of the gallbladder. My last webinar on the gallbladder lasted 5.5 hours. Just imagine, I talk for 5.5 hours about why we need this tiny gallbladder. So without fiber, your intestines can't work properly, and your microbiome can't be healthy either. You'll end up with a huge number of pathogenic bacteria, SIBO, SIGA issues, and so on. And accordingly, fiber feeds our good, beneficial bacteria, which, when there's enough fiber, actually synthesize B vitamins. So again, nutraceuticals, and more nutraceuticals. Please, just eat properly. You'll already have a foundation to build on, where you can add different protocols later, right? But we can actually get quite a lot just from normal, proper food. Another thing is, well, not everyone understands what normal, proper food actually is. Antioxidants. Again, that's a word everyone knows. So, chronic stress. That's clear, right? Insulin resistance. What is that? Don't be scared by such a complicated word. It's a situation that, simply put, is explained by a high level of insulin in our body. And when your body, your receptors, don't respond to or resistant to your own insulin, insulin resistance develops, excess weight, fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome, and so on. Because of insulin resistance, the cells don't get glucose. As a result, there's an energy deficit. It's not just cravings for sweets. There's a constant urge to eat and a persistent energy deficit with insulin resistance. In fact, insulin resistance and prediabetes, I'm putting it simply here, prediabetes type 2, are blockers of energy and leanness. Even just 5 extra kilos can lead us to insulin resistance. With insulin resistance, the cells don't sense insulin. They're resistant, unresponsive to their own insulin. Glucose stays floating around in the blood. You constantly feel tired with brain fog. Fat ends up in all our least favorite spots. Again, for men and women, fat gets stored differently. And then you get these ups and downs, endless cravings for food, swings in your appetite. And you say, I hardly eat anything, but I've gained 10 kilos in the last 2 months. I believe you. Because if someone has insulin resistance, leptin resistance, they'll gain weight even from eating just 1 cucumber a day. You need to understand what the optimal values are, not the reference ranges that labs use, which are the same for everyone. Specifically, for this particular person, what should their insulin level be? And the insulin level, actually, if you look at the lab reference, it says from 2 to 25. And someone comes in with an insulin level of 21 and says, my insulin is normal. That's not true at all. In reality, the optimal insulin level in your body shouldn't be higher than 8. And for glucose, well, that's 3.3, 5.5, 5.2 is even better, right? So, if your insulin is higher than 8, your insulin resistance index will be positive. What else drains our energy? Overloading the gastrointestinal tract. And without the normal functioning of the GI tract, it's impossible for a person to live normally, to feel well, to be healthy. Again, we're talking about nutrition. A person might eat properly, but what you eat and what you actually absorb are two completely different things. For a person to be energetic, we not only need to eat properly, not only take the right nutraceuticals, not only manage our cortisol, but also actually absorb what we eat. Very often, there's a situation where someone eats a lot of protein, but their blood protein level is 60. Why? It's not being absorbed. And why is that? Because they have inflammation in the gallbladder, bile stasis, and, well, formation issues. Bile in the gallbladder should be liquid, like water, but in our case, the bile is like plasticine. Of course, how is our body supposed to absorb protein like that? There will be severe intoxication, severe endogenous intoxication. Of course, what kind of energy can you expect? The body is just trying to survive. It doesn't care about your energy needs right now. That's why absorption is poor, so there's not much fuel. And without proper functioning of the GI tract. By the way, this isn't just about the intestines. This starts from the oral cavity and ends with the natural exit. So that includes the pancreas, normal stomach acidity, proper functioning of the gallbladder, and of course, the intestines, microbiome, and so on. The pancreas doesn't produce the right amount of enzymes. As a result, bile stagnates in the gallbladder, stomach acidity is low, and so this food not only doesn't get digested, but of course, it also doesn't get absorbed. That's why even superfoods, even vitamins, even the best possible diet, none of it matters if your digestive tract isn't working properly. If the digestive tract isn't working, isn't functioning, bile flow slows down, and as a result, fats aren't absorbed or emulsified, which in turn disrupts the synthesis of sex hormones. You might be asking, what does the digestive tract have to do with hormones? There's actually a very direct connection, dear friends, and when bile flow slows down, it ultimately disrupts the synthesis of sex hormones. That's why I believe we need to study this very deeply and systematically. If the digestive tract isn't working, protein absorption is impaired, which means there are no amino acids, and as a result, there are fewer hormones and fewer neurotransmitters. All our hormones are protein structures, and so on. Estrogen levels rise when the digestive tract is overloaded, which leads to swelling. Hello, PMS, weight gain, estrogen dominance syndrome, and all sorts of related issues, fibroids, endometriosis, fibrocystic breast disease, and so on. If the digestive tract is overloaded, vitamins and minerals aren't absorbed, and our cells aren't getting nourished right. So we've figured out what steals our energy on a physiological level. Chronic stress for sure, insulin resistance, absolutely, and an overloaded digestive tract, definitely. I don't even know which of these should come first. All of this really drains your energy. And of course, sleep disturbances too. Dear friends, I don't even know how many years I've been saying this. As long as I've been promoting preventive medicine, I've been saying you need to get proper sleep because there are so many hormones involved, so many different processes, including appetite, mood, and so on. What else drains our energy? Deficiencies. There are definitely a lot of deficiencies, yes, but today I'll talk about the main ones. These are magnesium and B12. I'd also include B vitamins in general here. B12, B9, B6, and probably ubiquinone, NAD, NADH, and iron. But these are the main ones. This also includes zinc, selenium, and fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D3, vitamin E, and a whole lot more. But these are the main deficiencies. Coenzyme Q10, which is involved in the process of energy production and also acts as an antioxidant, protecting cells from the effects of free radicals. And after 30, why do I always say after 30? It might seem like a young age, but in reality, after 30, its production decreases, just like collagen, glutathione, and so on. So it still seems like a young age, but you already need to understand how to support yourself, what to do with your body so that after 30 you don't turn into, let's say, an old, frail person. And coenzyme Q10 is a very important component of our energy, the well-known NAD. By the way, for drips are good, but if we look at the long-term perspective, taking NMN is much more beneficial, both for your body and your wallet. NAD is an interesting coenzyme without which cells can't survive. It triggers the production of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, as I already mentioned, the main source of energy that powers absolutely everything in our bodies. And NAD supports mitochondrial function, affects your weight, your metabolism, the state of your nervous system, and is involved in absolutely all vital processes. Basically, if something in the body doesn't work without NAD, it simply wouldn't work at all. So please remember this key point. Why are these for drips so trendy right now? Because it's a quick way to get your energy back. You get in for drip and you're like, oh, it's like when you drink an energy drink, and for a couple of days you're buzzing. But that's only for a couple of days, and then it all gets flushed out quickly with your urine. That's why I say, in the long run, NMN is still preferable. Iron. I'm talking about serum iron here. We're talking about iron in the blood serum, and iron helps carry oxygen to all the cells. The first signs of iron deficiency anemia are things like fatigue, apathy, not wanting to do anything, no energy, feeling unwell, pale skin, dark circles under the eyes, and so on. When it comes to serum iron in lab tests, laboratory reference values are great. Sure, references are important, but you need to know the optimal levels. So, if your lab results show iron levels for women between 15 and 25, in reality, the optimal amount for the body, especially for women, to have enough iron for all processes should be at least 20 micromoles per liter. And ferritin, which is our iron reserve, basically our credit card, should be at least 80. The reference range for hemoglobin in women is from 115 to 135. In reality, anything below 125 grams per liter, 125 to 130 grams per liter, is already considered anemia. Let's not confuse iron deficiency with anemia. Iron deficiency means low levels of iron and ferritin. I'd also take a look at transferrin here, but anemia can be different. Iron deficiency, B9 deficiency, or B12 deficiency. It's actually assessed by looking at hemoglobin. To diagnose iron deficiency anemia, we need to do quite a few tests. These tests aren't just for hemoglobin, but also for TIBC and UIBC. And really, it's best to get a complete blood count. That includes serum iron, ferritin, and transferrin. It would be great to check B9 and B12 as well, because these processes are all closely connected. That's how chronic fatigue develops, along with digestive issues and an imbalance in the functioning of the digestive organs. Even the best, healthiest food is eaten, but it's not absorbed. As a result, there are no nutrients, hormones don't respond to signals, weight and inflammation increase, and mitochondria burn out. There you go, that's the scheme. It's very simple. A physiological lack of energy.